Okay, so we're all seated. Good evening, everyone. My name is Yelena, and I'm here to welcome you to ICT Hub. It's a pleasure to see you here. I'm glad that you took the time off your summer schedules to visit this meetup. We have a great pleasure to host here Xiaochen Zhang. Did I pronounce it right? Thank you. He's the president of FinTech for Good. He is a blockchain influencer and an all-around supreme innovator, so we're happy to have you here. Together with him, we have Jovan Tišma, another blockchain expert and the Startup Genome ambassador. I'm going to let the two of you introduce yourselves in greater detail. You guys enjoy. If you have any questions, please do raise your hand because we have this taped for everyone who couldn't be here, so we need the sound on tape as well. Thank you so much. Please give a warm round of applause for our guests.
So thank you very much for the kind introduction and the invitation. My name is Xiaochen, and as what the host said that I'm the president of FinTech for Good and also serve on the United Nations ASCAP Digital Economy Task Force. In addition to this, and I have like 1,000 titles because we are doing incubation, acceleration investment on blockchain fintech company. So for each of the investments, potentially I will be serving on the board of this company or that company. So I will not be able to mention all of them. And this is a very exciting opportunity for me because when I was studying in Europe and one of my focus was economic transition, and where that Serbia was one of my case study. So it's very exciting for me to come to Serbia and having this opportunity to just have this short session and learn more from you and also learn more from this occasion. That's how does the blockchain ecosystem look like in Serbia, and what are the key opportunities and the challenge that the startups are facing here, and really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for ICT Hub host me. Thank you.
Hi everybody, thanks to be here for vacation season. I'm Jovan Tišma. I'm ambassador of Startup Genome. You heard about that organization from California. And my goal is to bringing people like this and to connect our community to get the better results for our ecosystem and to share our knowledge and to help each other. Also, I was working from the music industry, management, corporations, and last few years I'm business developing and regulations, helping with regulations to blockchain companies here in Serbia, like Real Market, Blinking, and some others. So that's for me, and thank you for having you here. It was pleasure. We organized this in few days, so it was rushy. And we can start with a question. So what are the key trends in blockchain development worldwide? What you can tell us from your experience, because you travel all the time?
Yeah, and so one thing, exciting about blockchain industry is that this is such a unique opportunity. Many people ask me, why are you excited about blockchain? I always, use the same answer that I was not old enough to just benefit from the rising of internet. So then, we have the great company like Microsoft and IBM, and then later Facebook and all that. But when they already occupy the space, and there are only very few opportunities for us who just come into the playground later. But blockchain is such a unique technology. It does provide a unique opportunity to democratize all the opportunities. And now that we are at the really early stage of the very exciting technology development. So we have the opportunity potentially to create the great company like Microsoft, the great company like Google, with the blockchain technology. So I think that's the first important understanding of the technology. The second part is that, when we just look back of the blockchain industry, and there are different categorization and also discussion of the evolvement of the technology. And in general, there are some common sense that we have now like 3 different era for blockchain development. And the first era is really, we don't have blockchain, we have only Bitcoin. So there, that Bitcoin was only shared by, a group of highly technical programmers, but has not been used, any other use case. And only those who are highly technical can participate. And at that time, and nobody were just looking at the use case beyond the Bitcoin. And then in 2015, the introduction of Ethereum and also smart contract make it much easier for other much less technical programmer to enter into the space, and started to just open door to connect those trust, accountability, efficiency related issues with this backbone technology, blockchain, to see how blockchain can really help to just address those trust-related challenges that we are facing. Then blockchain as a keywords emerging out of Bitcoin, becoming something standalone. And there, that of course Ethereum played a very important role. And of course, the introduction of Ethereum also just introduced a new fundraising mechanism. It's called initial coin offering, where that is also how Ethereum just raised their first round of investment. The 18 years old Vitalik just made a miracle to raise this large amount of investment from a white paper. This just create a new excitement in the whole startup community. And so then with the emergence of ICO, with the expansion of Ethereum and other later generation of blockchain technology, we are seeing many blockchain adoption, but those kind of adoption still just stay within the financial industry, and mainly that we see R3 and we see Happy Ledger and a few big alliance, but most of use cases still within the financial service industry. And then starting from 2018, that we are seeing really, this technology are really cross among different sectors, starting to just generating new proof of concept or pilots in, for example, agriculture, in smart city, and in education, in healthcare, in sustainable development. And many of the agencies at beginning just, only taking issue with Bitcoin, started to looking at the true impact where blockchain can really help to unlock. And that just make this technology go into a totally another level. In the meantime, that the fundraising side, the ICO just also emerged from uprising fundraising innovation to becoming a commonly understood as a scam. And then many investors just got burned, and the regulators worldwide started to just pay much more attention to this, and many just closed door to ICO. Then we are also in 2018 seeing an emergence of a new type of blockchain-based fundraising instrument, which are more compliant. That is a security token offering. That is basically tokenize your security. That's you don't need to go to Wall Street or NASDAQ. You can do your IPO, tokenize your security, and raise fund with much lower cost and addressing a different group of investors. So no matter from the technology development side, we're seeing the technology becoming faster, and some of the interoperability issue has been addressed, but there are more space of improvement being proposed by the community, because before it's only financial industry. Now all the industry started to just giving their own insights to see that, to make the blockchain solution work, we need the blockchain to be faster, we need the blockchain to be more safe, we need the privacy issue to be properly addressed, we need to address the scalability issue, and all those demands just create new kind of excitement for startups. And the good thing is that, last year when the Bitcoin price jumped almost to $20,000, and many of no matter large company or small startup, see this as a new opportunity. With the more tangible and solid question asked by the traditional mainstream industry, that this opportunity, startup, innovative opportunity, and becoming more solid with more industry background or support. And we do see that starting from 2019, and this technology is going to impact not only the financial industry, but also our daily life, and also how we run our business, and even how the government is going to be run in the future. So this is definitely something very exciting.
Great. I just want to talk with you about New Zealand legalized salaries paid in cryptocurrencies today. Bid bond issue, tokenized assets on the bond in Germany. You talk with Prime Minister of Malta, who was talking also in EU and about the importance of blockchain technology for the world. Bermuda, Swiss, Zug, and stuff. So what do you think? Can blockchain technology help us create a better world?
Yes, and the interesting, we have just continue of the industry of the development of the blockchain industry, because this is, although there are a lot of excitement, this is really the early stage of the technology development. There are so many barriers, there's so many uncertainty, there are so many challenges. And one of the biggest challenges is really the awareness, knowledge, and the capacity to understand, and also regulation. So, we take ICO as an example that, this is just create a new type of challenge that the regulators have never seen before. Then they have to just address it. And you can either choose to be more innovative, learn from the innovators, then to regulate it, or you have to ban it if you don't have proper regulations to just make it work. So that's why, for regulators, then they have really, different options. And when we just look at the regulatory involvement in the past, and the first regulator who just jumped into that was from New York, and when they just introduced the B license, and when at that time it was still only Bitcoin, there's no blockchain, and then Bitcoin trading and also how Bitcoin was used becoming a challenge. Then the regulator at that time have to learn that how to just trace and track Bitcoin transaction to avoid Bitcoin being used in illegal type of transaction like a Silk Road, and also who can just trade Bitcoins, because this is really at that time there's no definition whether it's a currency or it's assets or it's a commodity. So who should regulate? How they should be regulated? If you lose your Bitcoin, if your Bitcoin was stolen by others, and if a trading agency who actually don't have the security compliant, and finally you lost money from the trading, who should be responsible for that? There's so many challenges that the regulators should have to face. And then that was the time that then some of the New York regulators started to just hire high-tech programmers to figure out, the first B license was introduced. But that also actually just, push many of the Bitcoin players out of New York, because they don't want to be regulated, and they say, if you introduce the license, and we are going to leave. So that is only, at a city level. And when we just, go global, and, many regulators in the past few years are, struggling to see that how they can just be an enabler, but in the meantime, can protect the investors from fraud, and also have the new technology to just work with the existing traditional compliance system. So think about how complicated it is. And in many countries, and Bitcoin and also cryptocurrency has not got a legal definition yet. So without being properly defined, and you even don't know which category, what law can be applied. And so then there are, a lot of lawyers started to just lawmakers, then they start the lawmaking process to address that. And then there's also, other agency like the, for example, in China, Ministry of Industry and Information and Industry. And, you need to come up with blockchain industry standards to see that, for the blockchain development, what type of standards you have to just meet. Then to just like for privacy, data sharing, many of the standards need to just come. And that's, if you are a technical department or regulator, you need to also come up with the regulation around this line. And of course, that's if you are an agency, government agency, who is in charge of economic development, then you see, Bitcoin or blockchain create a lot of new jobs. Potentially, and blockchain-based infrastructure can really just transform, how the public service is going to be provided. So you need to incentivize startups to jump into that. How can you come up with, the grant and the incentive mechanism to just enable the pilots, but also that you can just protect the investor. That we see a lot of countries like UK introduced the FinTech sandbox, and we see that in Malta, in a few other countries who just clearly defined how to regulate ICOs, even how to regulate digital assets, how to just provide proper banking license for digital banks, and how to enable the traditional banks to provide service for the digital assets owners, etc. So those are the enabling policymakers. Then we just come to the SECs, like Security Commission or Banking Commission, and where that many of the banking activities or security activities, such as exchange, such as stock, those kind of such as how the banks should just comply KYC, ML, and all that. And all the traditional regulators have to just employ new techniques to see that in a blockchain world, how to do KYC, how to just report back to the regulator, and how to guarantee that this technology will not enable the terrorists to receive funds without being able to track. There's so many challenges. So that's why last year that we did a research and to see that to really just look at the top 10 countries where blockchain development is really advanced much faster than other jurisdictions. Then we just find out something interesting. There are a group of countries and whose blockchain development is really just being pushed or advanced by the innovative policy making, and like a sandbox, like clear guidance for digital assets, and also like a clear guidance on taxation, etc. And then there are also the far that end, very clear ban of ICO, ban of Bitcoin mining, ban of Bitcoin trading or exchange in digital exchange in general, but those bans cannot stop the community's excitement because of the size of the economy and the excitement of the opportunity. So that also just gave regulators a lot of insights that ban as a regulatory instrument may not work. So you have to have come up with something different to just make it work. And then we have some regulators in the middle. And they are learning, they are open, but they still don't have some very clear framework yet. So those countries then they first welcome some of the tested solution come to the country and work with regulators. During the process, regulators learn and how to just even understand the technology, the solution, and then later can just come up with some of the enabling environment or policy making. Example is like Kazakhstan. And then they launched the Astana International Finance Center, and which is really just to serve as a policy or policy-making agency for enable FinTech development in the country. So in the past few years that, a group of experts are working with the government, coming up with, several, legislative framework so that now many more blockchain FinTech company can actually, go to Kazakhstan to start business. And that's, although it's still, in the process to be a hub, it's not a hub yet, but definitely we see the hope. So you can see, the technology advanced so fast, and policy makers is really, is in the process to race with the technology advancement.
Great. Okay, so for me, when I'm looking all of this, three key things for me in blockchain is digital identity, cross-border transactions, and smart contracts. What you think about that? Because I think before governments get their digital identity for all of their citizens, and how we will create in the future our digital identity, and how we can rely on the smart contracts, and how the government will going to look on the cross-border transactions, because worldwide with IBM, they try with 86 banks, but I think they didn't get so right with Stellar and transactions because of the governments and KYC.
Yeah, and so, this is a very complicated issue at this early stage. And, when we try to answer that, there are two ways to just go about it. One is that, when we just look at a blockchain-based application, and we always say that there are, 6 or 7 categories. Blockchain can be used to just create digital currency, and it can just create digital assets, or enable physical asset to be changed to digital asset, then to be represented by the tokens. And also it can just enable smart contract, which can automate the process. And it also can just create a digital identity, and where that's all your data or transactions in the past and now, and can just be becoming part of your digital identity, which enable you to have an economic identity, which enable you to access to different services. Then there's also the tracing and tracking solution, where that you can use blockchain-based solution to know, who is trading or doing transaction with whom, and what amount, and at what, all the transaction can be recorded there. So in this, that's, in different use case, and you face a totally different type of challenge. The reason is very simple. That's the solution is disrupting some existing business model or way of doing things, and which those way of doing things have precisely being regulated by different policy, regulations, or laws. And now you have a totally different way of doing it. For example, we take smart contract as example. A typical contract, what we are familiar with now, is you have 2 parties, and it's then you have a contract. The contract only you will just go to the court if the contract is breached, and then the court will review the evidence, then to just make decision, and who will just compensate the other, and because based on what kind of evidence. So that's the whole thing that we are familiar with. And we take this for example, ecosystem payment, smart contract-based ecosystem payment process. then we see, you understand how, fundamentally different this become. And in the, ecosystem payment, smart contract-based ecosystem payment system, that you have the government who just put their payment on the smart contract. Then you have the companies who just collect their data, environmental protection data, through the IoT devices. Those are being recorded not by the company, but on the blockchain by a third party, which has nothing to do with this transaction. Then the government can trust the data, and also when the data is just come to the being recorded on the blockchain, when the contract is being triggered, and then the payment automatically being made to the company. You don't need to apply or talk to the regulator. Hey, I meet the requirements. And then the government doesn't need to say, hey, you didn't. And the smart contracts will tell you the story. If the data just meet the requirement, trigger the smart contract, the agreement or contract automatically being implemented. So there, you don't see a third party who will just, going to intervene, manipulate all that. And of course, a lot of the challenge around smart contract is smart contract is still at its very early stage. And many people call smart contract as dumb contract because it's just automation. It cannot just really, integrate all the complexity in the real life. For example, in a smart contract, if, me as, the coder who made a mistake, or if just, this smart contract totally being properly implemented, but then a third party or, the right of the receiver just, got totally, completely just being damaged. Can you just stop it? You can't. And then if there's, there's no arbitration as of now. So there's a lot of, things which make the smart contract not working properly now. So that's why we can see that, for the smart contract related blockchain application, and it's from both sides. On one side is from the traditional sector, and we need, the mindset change, and also a lot of technical expertise need to be brought to the team, and how the traditional contractual relationship can be converted, translated into code. And then from this side is, how you can just make the smart contract smart enough to really reflect the complexity of the reality. There are a lot of, potential startup opportunity can come out of this. So this is only, one type, as your question mentioned. If we go to the tracing tracking, or we go to the digital asset or digital identity, and each of those applications, has different excitement and also challenge. And around the digital identity, that's something which I think is going to fundamentally change our world. And thinking about Estonia as a country which is really next to Serbia, it's very close. And each individual, when you are born, and then you have one digital identity, and all your information or transaction your whole life can be just represented within this digital identity. And then, whoever just you want to share your information, you don't need to have the bank to just do the, collect the data or even purchase data from a third party to offer you, ask for more money to offer you the service. But from your digital identity, you can authorize them to access to any type of data you want to give them access to. And in return, they have to reduce the service fee so that both sides get benefit. The middleman just be taken out of that. And those are, for those people who already have identity. For those, in the whole world, we have more than 1 billion people who don't have identity. And without identity, you cannot access to banking service. And it's very expensive for you to access to like insurance, many of other public service. So now that with digital identity, potentially that you can really just have this identity, and which can just not only your financial data, but also your daily transaction, your social media connections, and your WhatsApp, all those kind of information can help service provider, and you later own your own data, can just have this, profile. If we take ourselves as a customer, or then we have the best customer profile, which is the data will even equal to us. Then that whoever offer your service, then they know that the risk to offer you the service next to zero, and in this that they can just really just reduce the cost for them to provide you the service. And for that 1.some billion people who don't have any or cannot have basic service, now you have this instrument which can fundamentally transfer your life. But of course, this is, again, it's early stage. Digital identity is at a very early stage. There are a lot of issues which are not addressed, like the privacy issue, like the security issue, like the, interchain validation and interoperability issue, etc., are still there. But the potential is enormous. That's why this is, being regarded, digital identity is being regarded as one of the most exciting innovation in the blockchain space.
Exactly. And like for me, what is scaring me about, it's Facebook Libra, that they say that they are the future of the money. So what do you think about that project?
Yeah, and Libra, who did you hear about Libra first? Okay, so then we need to talk a little bit about it because, at least 50% of you didn't raise your hand. So Libra project was, initiated by Facebook, and then they invited 27 other really large organizations. Each one, need to just have at least 10 million to be eligible to join the Libra Association. Many people call Libra project owned by Facebook. It's not. And Libra project is a joint project, will be launched. Now it's not launched yet. Will be launched by the Libra Association, which is composed now of 28 organizations. And from the last testimony that David Marcus did in front of the U.S. Congress, that by the time when they launch, they want to have at least 100 members in the Libra Association. Why do they need so many members? And why so many regulators just got so itchy about the project? Why, this is just becoming so important to every one of us? Because, the first question to you is that who don't have a Facebook account? Yeah, you're the best. So far, that as you can see, majority in the room have a Facebook account. Who have a digital wallet? Then you can see that majority don't have a digital wallet. Why people don't want to have a digital wallet? Because it's complicated. Because you have to learn how to install a digital wallet, because you have to remember all the password, because the user friendliness is not there. And I forgot the password of my at least 3 or 4 digital wallets with a lot of assets there, and I cannot access. So this, is not right. And why, everyone is so scared and so excited about Libra project? Facebook has, more than 2 billion users. And if they design a wallet is as simple or similar to Facebook interface, it will be so easy for anybody to just have a wallet. So that's why, although many of the startups really are scared or hate Libra project, but they are really like praying Libra project by, bringing the concept, bringing blockchain innovation to the mass crowd. Because now that everyone is talking about it, and in the future, if it's being used, and then it will be the learning curve will change completely. So definitely, Libra project brought a lot of positive incentive or positive driving force to the market. Just to see the least, Libra becoming a political agenda or lawmaking agenda in almost all countries. And the G7 is looking at it, and the G20 is looking at it, and the IMF is looking at it. Everybody's looking at it. And now whoever is working on blockchain, you probably, before when you talk to a regulator or you talk to any average people, it takes you 5 hours, and the other person still may not know what you're talking about. And probably 90% of them, before you just complete your 5 minutes, they left because they are not interested. So now because of the Libra project, the high visibility, they already learned themselves. And if they try to learn, they didn't understand, when you talk to them, they're so excited, they're so interesting, and they want to learn. And with that, your communication with them becoming so enjoyable. You're not talking to the wall, you're talking to people who are so interested. So the whole dynamic changed a lot because of Libra project. And when you just look at this 28 members, Facebook has around 2.7 billion users. And now when we just look at the whole 28 members, they have around 4.4 billion users. Think about that is more than half, 50% of people live on this earth. And one project it's bigger than any single or European Union, China plus India, and China plus India plus the European Union. So you can see, why everyone is itchy about it. And of course, it also brings a lot of challenge. The number one challenge is that it is, many define this as a supranational currency. And we are in the nation-state system. And in the nation-state system, how can they allow a supranational currency to just, operate? That is the number one challenge. Number two is that, even if they allow, and think about, why country or nation state becoming nation state. There are two main rights that the nation state have, which other organizations don't have. One is, about issue money. The other is to just legally using force. That is the military. And if you just gave your, the currency side out to an organization, the reason, why a lot of regulators just challenge Libra project because they think it is just for Facebook. Facebook has a lot of, negative track record. Then if your currency is being just controlled by a company with a lot of bad track record, think about it, how challenging the situation could be. So that's why Libra Association try to communicate, no, we are a non-profit. We are not controlled by one member. We are not controlled by Facebook. So that's why, but even that, does any country want to give their monetary policy making rights to an association? Probably no, right? So in this, that's why in the testimony that Marcus was repeated himself again and again, that we are not trying to interfere with any country's monetary policy. Monetary policy is belong to the central bank. We are not going to do that, but central banks don't believe it. So there will be a lot of communication work need to be done, and then for both sides to understand where is the balance and how to just keep that work if the Libra project can be launched in the future. And the third thing is really about the profit side. Because the reason, why Libra Association composed by this group is by design. It's not by selection. They are not, elected organization. They are picked by Facebook. And they picked for a reason, not only for the community size, but also for the business that they are into, so that this currency can really have volume and also have the use case where it can be used. And if this will be the supranational currency, and then it be controlled by the 100 members or governed by the 100 members, what about others, non-members? Do we want to just give that right to this association for our daily monetary usage? If they tracing and tracking our data and use it in a different way which we don't like, or if they just gave our data to Facebook and now they can have totally our financial data with our social network data, then they use it in a different way. Do we want that? So there will be a lot of questions in the next 1 year, because the Libra project hope to be launched in 2020. So everyone see the challenge, because there will be a lot of communication between the Libra Association with regulators in different countries. And there will also be a lot of communication should be done or have to be done between Libra Association with the whole community, and which means that the civilization, everyone who live on this earth, they may potentially just have impact.
Great. Well, when I look like use cases for cryptocurrencies, like Venezuela is a good example how people we get the freedom with their financials with cryptocurrencies in the country where now the inflation is so crazy. And can you tell us something about existing blockchain innovations and use cases that you saw on different markets? What exciting you, what you think is like interesting for our crowd to hear about?
Yeah, so I never thought that Bitcoin is a digital currency, and I always think that Bitcoin is a digital asset. The reason is very simple. That if it is a currency and it cannot fluctuate like that, and today you buy this glass of water is like the US dollar value is like 0.1. Tomorrow, because Bitcoin price change, it becoming like $1,000. Nobody want to make any transaction. So that's why it's not a digital currency. It's an asset. And how to just make a blockchain-based cryptocurrency or becoming a payment tool which can just facilitate the circulation or of the economy. And that's a new type of innovation within the digital currency that's called a stable coin. So for the stable coin, that's really just reflect what happened in the Bitcoin space. You probably everyone know the famous example. The first Bitcoin use case, someone bought this pizza, and finally this pizza using, when Bitcoin was $20,000, this pizza is like worth, more than $10 million. So that would be, ridiculous. And so that's why this cannot work. Then you have to just make the coin, digital currency or cryptocurrency, stable enough. So then they just packed the cryptocurrency with some stable assets. That assets can be different. It can be gold, can be a real asset, can be the existing fiat currency, can be a basket of fiat currency, can be a basket of different assets. For example, Libra as a stable coin that they are just backed by 4 assets, but they are actually the currency, and they are in the US dollar and euro and Japanese yen and also pounds. So all these 4 currencies are pretty stable, although they are fluctuating, but they are regarded as more stable currency. So then to just have this basket and to make each of the Libra will be backed with this basket of assets. In this, this will not be fluctuated dramatically like other like Bitcoin. And the same thing to many, like we are seeing like gold-backed stablecoin or index-backed stablecoin or some real asset-backed stablecoin. Each one of them has its strengths and also has its shortcoming. So if anyone just want to tell you that we have a stablecoin which is objectively the best, which 100% a false claim. So when you have a stable, the stability of the coin is always in a comparative term. So you have to just look at, but for you, it becoming an option and a choice to see that which type of mechanism you want to use. And in general, from the currently that's if you are looking at investment, you don't invest in stablecoin because it should be stable, and then there shouldn't be fluctuation. And you may just look at the digital asset. If you are not interested in the investment or trading side, then you probably need to look at the use case and see that how blockchain technology can transform my business. So then, based on what you want, then you will choose different type of projects and which is being backed by different type of mechanism.
Cool. And what do you think about like cooperating and opportunities for Serbia to work like with China and US, Europe on the project? How you can see us in that big crowd?
Yeah, and so this is, I think today the most interesting question. And there are a couple of things which is extremely interesting in the blockchain space. Number one is that we always see that there are a few barriers for the industry to develop. Number one is human capital. And Serbia, from no matter the economic performance or the size of population, is not the top 10. But when you just look at the blockchain human capital, it's belong to the top 10. So how exciting it is. And a lot of blockchain companies who successfully raise the fund will take or looking at Serbia seriously for human capital. For that, I think that is number one. This is a country with rich human capital for the blockchain industry, and which this industry cannot ignore the country. So I think that is a very good brand for the country. And number two is that when we just talk about China, Serbia, and there's a historical friendship, and for example, me as a Chinese who don't have a Schengen visa or who doesn't have European passport, and I can come to Serbia without a visa. And many of the Chinese business person, no matter they want to do business with the Balkan countries, or they want to do business with Balkan country plus European countries, the easiest starting point is Serbia. And so I think with the human capital, with the willingness to come here to just because of the friendship, long-term friendship, and that already just prepared the precondition. The third part is China had this Belt and Road initiative, and which is trying to just connect those countries along the Belt and Road countries to just advance economic development opportunities, and there are serious infrastructure-related investment and intergovernmental collaboration and allocation of specific funding for different opportunities. Like I shared with you in just the next month, and I will be in Vienna for the UNIDO, United Nations Industry Organization event for smart city for Belt and Road, where that Serbia is also part of this very important player in the Belt Road. And from the China side, that is very clear. And the reason, for this visit, the reason, as what I mentioned, that we didn't plan this like for months, is some, event. I just came here for my business, and we are here in Serbia to start a new company. And this new company is just to introduce the transport card in Serbia, where that the Chinese, when they just travel to Serbia, travel to Europe, then they can just use the card to just they deposit in China, they can spend here. The same thing for the European citizens and the Serbian. When they deposit local money, when they go to China, they can just use the card to just do this. We have the whole European Union country and non-European Union European countries. Why do we choose Serbia? That's exactly, we see this as the opportunity. Many companies, like my company, feel exactly the same way. So this is another very important. Belt Road definitely, provide or create a lot of new excitement for this. The last one is, really around the startup ecosystem. In Serbia, this is, the talent level is really high, and the education level and the strength of talents, but the capital is not there. So many of the best innovators who have the talents, who have the entrepreneurship spirit, but don't have capital to just move their idea into the next stage. And why? Well, in China, there's because we have more than 1.4 billion people. There are different needs, and then Serbia-based innovation can potentially meet many of those needs. And in China, there will be a lot of startup investment opportunities and many investment funds. So far, for example, in blockchain space and also in big data, in China's investment last year all overpassed US was the world #1. So then if those investment partially more coming to Serbia, and I think that will be a significant improvement for the access to finance for all the entrepreneurs. And of course, this is a mutually beneficial arrangement. So we don't see that, who is helping whom. It's really mutually beneficial arrangement. And the last point is that, the policy stability. And when you just, no matter if you want to just build this cross-border collaboration, the policy clarity is very important. And if this year, and we want you to be there, next year we want you to go out. Next year we introduce you some barriers and make you just, this kind of policy uncertainty will just, kill the collaboration. Again, we can go back to the Serbia-China relationship. And that, policy certainty is there, which can just give a lot of certainty for the investors, which will be willing to just, provide the investment for the Serbia-based startups.
Okay, so you mentioned that Chinese Belt and Road Initiative will bring a lot of opportunities to Serbian people. I know that many of those projects are infrastructural projects carried out by the Chinese national government companies. So can you tell me what exactly opportunities will be open for the Serbian people?
Yeah, and so, before I address this question, and I want to just make a disclaimer that I don't represent the Chinese government. I'm a Chinese living in the US, and so my judgment is really a businessman's judgment, so which is not better than yours. And so that is the disclaimer. So don't take that as government official proposition or anything. But when we just look at, because I used to work for United Nations and World Bank, and when you just look at the whole development process, it's always starting from the infrastructure project. Because when you just in China, there's a saying like 要想富先修路. The translation of that is if you want to get rich, you first build a road. Because without road and the best product, you cannot sell, transport it out. You cannot sell it. So that's why it's always, the Chinese experience is always that you build the infrastructure first. Then when the infrastructure is ready, then you can just start doing the trade and all that. When the Belt Road was initiated, was launched, it was in like 2013, if my memory was right. And from that time till now, and a lot of investments really focused on infrastructure. So that's the big road and the transportation related. A lot of you can see a lot of those kind of things. But when you just look at after the road, and nobody, among all the countries within the Belt Road, nobody wants a road. And because if you have the road, nobody just use it. If there's no economic growth, and if there's no true economic connection, you build a road, there's no car will just transport any people. There's no truck to transport any goods. Then the road will not be used. So that's why the essence of this is, first stage to build the infrastructure, then the second stage to just have all the different type of deeper type of opportunities and what they are, and it's really from if you go to the Belt Road Forum organized by like Belt Road countries before that, I was participating quite a number of them. And each sector has their Belt Road strategy and have clearly identifying the opportunities. Like for textile industry, for the IT industry, for the outsourcing industry, for the agriculture industry, there are specific reports and with the specific studies and projections and what Belt Road initiative can really bring to that country or to the whole region.
And for FinTech for Good, can you tell us more about your organization? And do you have for FinTech for Good some plans for Serbia?
Yes, and so FinTech for Good, we call ourselves a global enabler. And the reason, when I left the World Bank and people ask me that, what do you want to do? And because my expertise is really in the international development and innovative finance space. But that's mostly that, we were just, World Bank will always serve as an enabler and, help the government to have the policy and provide, lending instrument and other financial instrument to just implement those development projects. So after I left World Bank, and that's my expertise, I cannot do other things. So that's why when I started FinTech for Good, we define ourselves. We are an enabler. We identify the best FinTech and blockchain company or innovation. We match them with the challenge faced in those frontier markets. And we work in 4 main areas. One is sustainable development goals, and those solutions which can address the 17 SDGs and 169 indicators. And we also work on financial service sector, and we also work in the energy and climate change sector, and lastly that we also work in the smart city sector. So those are the 4 sectors that we focus on. Within the sector, our main instrument is really incubation, acceleration, and investment. And last year that we launched a media platform, we produced shows, we create PR marketing for our startups. And we also have education piece. We create different educational materials. We organize workshop events, getting the concept out, educate people, or get them industry certificate. So those are the main work that we do. But in addition to that, we also advise government agencies to come up with innovative policy making to enable the environment. But for Serbia, as I shared with you earlier, that I studied Serbia for my master's degree as a use case, and I was always fascinated, about what's happening here. And last year or the year before, that I went to some Balkan country to just did a lot some grant work, and basically we are looking at Serbia in the way how what are the, because we cannot just come here and say, hey, FinTech for Good want to start something in Serbia. This will fail. So then, I came here for several, this is my second trip, but for the Balkan countries, it's already like several trips. We are at the studying stage and basically doing the feasibility study, meeting with the right partner, and identifying the right opportunity, and so that we can just come up with the right approach. And earlier that, I have already discussed several opportunities with the potential partner here, but it's just at a very, very early stage. Number one is that we discussed, for an acceleration program for the Libra-based blockchain technology. So then in this, that's, because we have the best developers in the world here, and then you can just develop different projects. And then from the Libra side, if you are interested, then we provide you 10 weeks of acceleration program, and then combine this, with the Libra Camp program in other countries, so that you have a global community, and we provide, grant, and also provide later investment. So that's from the acceleration side. It's a very, very early stage, and it may not happen, and I don't want to make it as it's happening or it will happen. So this is early discussion because we are at the studying stage. And the second opportunity, as I mentioned, is about the transportation card, and later we want to connect the transportation card also with the digital side of the financial service provision. So that's another opportunity where that we can just advance the transaction and also communication between Serbia and China. When using this easy instrument accessed in both markets, you can reduce some barriers for when you just do the tourism or study or pure business transaction. And the third is that I just heard before this about the business angels and the VC related ecosystem here, and ICT Hub play a very important role here. And within these days, and I met a few potential partners. They also shared with me about that. We see, as I shared already, that the high quality talents and the low level of finance or investment. And I also see this as a potential good opportunity. Potentially that we can just also looking at how to just combine our investment vehicle to the Serbia ecosystem.
Great. Do somebody have some questions?
So it's you mentioned climate change and sustainability, environmental goals. So my question is, what China and Serbia can do together in these two questions or challenges? So I don't know.
Yeah, sure. For climate change, basically we are dealing with several major issues. One is the mitigation side. From the mitigation, it's really about in different industry how to reduce emission reduction, and there that you need to just introduce new standards, introduce new machinery, and also to just generate more renewable energy, and introduce new agriculture-based smart, climate-smart agricultural practice, etc. So there, that's I think there are mutual learning opportunities, and some of the, for example, climate change or especially mitigation side of the technology can potentially be used. And just in China's 14th or 13th 5-year plan, and then there was they call it 10, 100, 1,000 project, 100千工程. So for that project, basically, China want to just help many countries to just develop climate-friendly pilots and a demonstration center, and also just emission reduction projects. So there will be government level. There already the corporation level. That's from mitigation side. From the adaptation side, that's climate change. No matter if it will happen, so then we need to just improve the adaptation capacity for the community, for disaster risk prevention and or disaster relief, and also to just improve the agricultural practice, to just improve the yields of the goods, and there are different things that the country can learn from each other, and from the technology there can be technology transfer. And the last part is that no matter you are talking about mitigation or adaptation, there will be financing needs. So without money, you cannot make it happen. So then within China, in the past, through the South-South grant or fund, South-South fund, managed by UN, there are already significant amount of grant and low interest rate provided for climate change related issue for developing countries. And so I don't know whether this apply to Serbia, but in general I see that mitigation, adaptation, and climate finance. These are the three areas. Before I came here, before this started, and someone in the room shared with me of their blockchain-based renewable energy system. So I think those kind of things are extremely exciting. You have blockchain-based energy trading or blockchain-based energy management system, which can be pilot tested here and later can be scaled up in China. So there will be a lot of opportunity within the climate change space between the two countries.
Hey, so we are currently. It may seem that Bitcoin and Ethereum protocols are dominant. That most of the blockchain.
Can you be louder so I can
currently, it may seem that the Bitcoin and Ethereum protocols are the dominant ones, and it may seem that most of the users are there, right? But we are seeing protocols like Libra and having a lot of influence by big companies that are already dominant in the centralized world. Do you think we are going to see more growth in the completely decentralized space like Ethereum, or we are going to see much more growth in Libra and the quasi-centralized ecosystem?
Yeah, so to answer this question is first, how long do we looking at the market? For the long term, is 1 year long term, 2 year long term, 5 year long term, or 10 year long term. So based on this, the answer will be completely different. And we are living in a centralized global community or society. So all countries are managed, all companies are managed in a centralized way. So if you in a centralized organization, and a decentralized system has a lot of constraints and a lot of about data sharing, about many things which a centralized organization will not allow. So that's why when we transit from a centralized to a decentralized society, it may take 5 years, it may take 10 years, it may take 20 years. We still don't know now. But because we are not there, we are not in a decentralized society yet, so we are still in a centralized society. So that's why we have to see how the distributed protocol can work with a centralized organizational structure. So that's why from the ledger technology, we have the private ledger and the hybrid ledger. Private blockchain and hybrid blockchain and public blockchain. So many of the large mainstream organizations, they applied or they adopt private and hybrid. They didn't adopt public. And the reason is simple, because they are centralized organization. And then this is the best option for them now to just get things done, because you need to share data and without open that to others, and that can only be done within the hybrid model or within private model. It cannot be done within the public model yet, public blockchain yet. So then, from both sides, that from the if something like Libra just becoming dominating, and then the public ledger-based system becoming more adopted, becoming mainstream, then any centralized organization potentially have to adopt it, because otherwise you cannot enter into the global transaction system. So then you're forced to go into it. So that's why here there are a lot of uncertainty. But the factors which just really influence that or impact that are, number one, how good is the public ledger technology, and whether the public ledger can address centralized organizations' problem. And this is, by nature, is difficult. And the second part is, how long does it take for the society to change from a centralized to decentralized? And for many of the company, the number one is to survival. If you develop a public ledger, you cannot sell to, because everyone who have the ones which have the purchasing power are the mainstream centralized organization who don't want to purchase those public ledger or public blockchain projects. Probably innovators will just have to focus on that, although they may not like it, but they have to survive. So then you probably in the near future, you will continue to see that many organizations will just working on hybrid or private blockchain projects. But I do think, and I truly believe, the real future is not the private and hybrid. The real future is really the public ledger.
Do you think we are first going to see a semi-decentralized solution and then the transition to a decentralized one?
Yeah, that's the hybrid model, basically, you are describing. So
no, I'm more thinking Libra is public, right? But it is also limited to just a limited number of... I'm thinking more about that semi-decentralized model than...
So you mean within the public blockchain, then there will also be different nodes, and for the public chain, the ideal scenario public chain, that's all the nodes have equal rights, and so far for the Libra project specifically, you are going to have like 100 nodes, and all these are the super nodes who are the validators and who can validate the transaction. Others can't. The reason is exactly as what you mentioned. Those are because this 100 organization, they are not a distributed community. They are basically a network of large organizations, and then they just enjoy the benefits which blockchain provide for their business. And then they are not a distributed or decentralized organization. So that's why they adopt this in such a manner where that you see a lot of control. And in the true decentralized platform or distributed ledger platform, public ledger, and you don't want anybody have control power. But for that, you can see this 100 organization definitely have much more power than all the others.
Do you think we are going to see more growth in that model, or?
It depends whether Libra will be successful first, or whether it can be launched. Because if this one cannot be launched, and it's like the Bitcoin ETF. When Bitcoin ETF was introduced, and everyone think if it can be approved, then the whole Bitcoin price will just go sky high, and everyone will just this will be the mainstreaming of Bitcoin. But then, as of now, no Bitcoin ETF was being proved. So we still don't know whether it will happen or not. The same thing applies to Libra project. There are so many barriers which may just kill the project before it is going to be launched. So if this is going to be killed, who have the courage to start a similar project? Even you start such a project, who want to be the partner to join if they got burned, earlier. So then there will be a lot of learning, and so that's why the answer to this question is really a dynamic model. That's it's like a game theory. How the markets emerge, then the other players react to it. Then we have a different result.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much for your time, and I know today is such a outside is great weather. You can just enjoy a lot of a good conversation, but you choose to stay here to just have this conversation. And I really appreciate your time and appreciate your questions, and I learned a lot. And thank you very much. And I hope this is not the last time that I meet with this wonderful crowd. And if you have any questions, or if you'd like to continue conversation, and I will still stay here, and let's continue the conversation. Thank you very much, and thank you for ICT Hub, and thank you for my friend. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for your time.